This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The request by the Confederation of African Football to its members to decide the fate of the 2019-2020 season, disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic, has brought uncertainty. Some countries have voted to resume or cancel their competitions, while others are facing legal challenges or standoffs. On tonight's Sports Scene, an expert panel sheds light on the status of African club football post-COVID-19. Hello and a very warm welcome to your home of African sports news, views and interviews. This is Sports Scene here on CGTN. Great to have you joining us once again. I'm Mahia Muta in Nairobi. Also coming up this week, football leagues in Burkina Faso and Niger have been cancelled due to the coronavirus. And the decision to end the 2019-2020 Kenyan football season early is challenged in court. Welcome to the show. We kick off in Nigeria, where the country is on course to resume its top-flight professional football league from Monday. Matches were suspended following the coronavirus outbreak, and the return of action will be guided by detailed medical protocols and rules. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam gets us underway.
Nigerian Professional Football League was suspended some 2 months back to prevent the spread of the coronavirus disease. Early last month, President Muhammadu Buhari approved a phased and gradual easing of lockdown measures. Now, sports authorities have announced plans to resume matches by June. The announcement has been met with mixed reactions.
If we are to play any league game during the course of this lockdown, it's going to be a lot of problems. A lot of logistics will be involved for the players to move across. And then you also have to contend with so many factors that may make it practically difficult. You have to deal with the medical protocols that will be required, the processes of testing all the players. If we are ready to go through the protocols, then we can begin to talk about the league resuming. I don't see us starting the league next month, because how many people are we going to test? The country as a whole has been able to test about 40,000 people, 40,000 plus.
Some countries are ending their leagues, but the Nigerian League Management Company is keen on concluding its season with 13 more game weeks to go. While some have suggested leagues be called off and a winner decided on the current table, it's not a decision officials are likely to make.
How it was before was that Plateau United were the front runners for the title. And we have other teams like Rivers United, Aqua United, Eimba FC, all still with chances of winning the title. But the thing is this, some clubs have played more matches than the other. The question is, with such things, it's very difficult for you to cancel the season, because where will you now put Eimba? Where will you put the clubs that are at the top and other clubs that have more matches to play, outstanding matches to play? So it's a very peculiar situation. But eventually, I think the best will be for the matches to be played in full, the remaining matches.
Before resuming football activities, all players and officials would undergo medical tests and screenings, and in all, there are about 20 clubs. More so, matches will be played under strict health and safety guidelines, most likely behind closed doors. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Let's cross to East Africa now, where Tanzania has issued guidelines on the resumption of 4 domestic football leagues, including how and where the matches will take place. This comes on the back of President John Magufuli's announcement that the mainland Premier League will resume on the 1st of June. CGTN's Isaac Lukando has more from Dar es Salaam.
The Tanzanian government has cleared the mainland Premier League, the Azam Sports Federation Cup, First Division League and Second Division League to resume on the 1st of June. The cities of Dar es Salaam and Mwanza have been selected as the 2 venues for the remaining matches of the 4 football leagues. The sports minister says that COVID-19 is still in the country and insists on taking as much precaution as possible.
That habit of a player getting tired and spitting on the pitch is normal in Europe as well as here. We should try and reduce that. Even if it means putting buckets for that purpose, that would be great. We must change. Also, when your teammate has scored a goal and you all pile up on top of each other in celebration, this is not the time for it.
And while the matches will be largely played without spectators, 10 to 20 fans from each team will be allowed to be thoroughly tested prior to getting inside. Ministry Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Well, let's open this discussion up now. For more on the status of African Football Leagues post-COVID-19, I'm happy to welcome our correspondents Adel Mahroui in Cairo, Egypt, and CS Duplessis in Johannesburg, South Africa, as well as Ahmed Hussein, who is the Communications Director for the Uganda Football Federation in Kampala, Uganda. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Adel, I'll begin with you. Is it too soon now for the countries that have voted to resume football, even as the COVID-19 numbers continue to rise on the continent?
1,100, 1,200, 1,300. That's the number of daily cases Egypt has been reporting over the past 3 years. And over the past 3 days, sorry. And the numbers are expecting to increase. The country is still bracing to reach the peak of infections. This is the case in Egypt and in several other African countries, especially football giants in North Africa and South Africa, with also West Africa countries like Nigeria too. So the continent is still moving in terms of the pandemic terms to reach its peak yet, unlike Europe and other countries, especially in Asia as well, who have reached their peak and now are seeing a decrease in infection rates. The continent is still far from having this whole pandemic of COVID-19 to be declared as over yet. So is it too soon? It could be, at least for Egypt and several other African countries, because the numbers are increasing, and therefore there is definitely no fans will be allowed. Still, Egypt is planning to resume sports activities by mid-June. The fate of football remains unknown, with both the government, the EFA, have nothing to announce in that regards. But the EFA today has announced that it is ready to whatever scenario would come up from the government. It has thrown the ball into the sports ministry's hands, saying that the government is exclusively responsible for the fate of football. But the EFA insists that it is ready, whether the season will be cancelled, it has scenarios planned, or whether the season will be resumed. It also has scenario plans. So in terms of preparation, it seems that some clubs and the EFA are ready for the resumption of football activities, but health-wise and in terms of security for players and fans, if any, will be allowed, it is still maybe way too ahead to give the green light for people, or at least to guarantee the safety of people under this pandemic.
And speaking about health, CS, let me come to you in South Africa. Is the push for the resumption of football driven by pressure from fans, sponsors and clubs, as opposed to health reasons?
Mahia, there certainly is pressure from the fans, from the PSL clubs themselves, because at the end of the day, the country is in a slump. The Rainbow Nation is feeling rather down. It's been a very, very intense lockdown period with no sports at all. So the fans are impatient. The PSL clubs are wondering where their next paychecks are going to come for their players. Players are already having salary cuts. Cape Town City, players have had between 30 and 90% pay cuts. So there is certainly pressure from there. Whereas the South African Football Association, on the other hand, have the health and safety of the players, the coaching staff, the officials, the fans. They have to think about that, and they're waiting on government's green light. Now, the sports minister, Nathi Ntetwa, today released a statement saying that level 3 lockdowns will continue, but it means that contact sports will stay on the sidelines. However, that they have 14 days, that's all the sporting federations, to come up with plans and protocols on how to return to football, to rugby, to cricket, whatever it may be. At this stage, though, there certainly is a lot of pressure, but it's more frustration because players know that there's so many things that fall into place. There's facets that have to come into the remainder of the season. Who gets relegated? Who gets the championship? Who qualifies for the CAF Champions League? It all is hanging in the balance, but at this stage, they do want to try and finish the season.
Right, and Ahmed, let me come to you looking at the wider national picture now. Is there enough time for the countries kick-starting their football to complete their competitions without then later on affecting the AFCON 2021 qualifiers as well as the 2020-2021 new season?
I think for me, it depends on the countries, on the number of matches that are either left in a particular country. I can give, for example, in Uganda, there are only 5 rounds of matches to be played, but those matches could have been played maybe in 3 or under 1 month. But then you also put into a picture of how much time will the players have had to train and in preparation for the game as well. Even some countries
All right, we seem to have lost Ahmed a bit there, but here is a brief look now at the status of different football leagues across the continent. Football leagues in Burkina Faso and Niger have been cancelled due to the coronavirus.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. We're taking a look at the situation of football leagues across the continent. Let's take you to Burkina Faso, where leagues there have been cancelled due to the coronavirus. The West African nations opted to forfeit the 2019-2020 season and domestic football competitions after considering options at their disposal. CGTN Sadiq Shaban has more.
Members of the Emergency Committee of the Burkina Faso Football Federation decided to cancel the 2019-2020 season of the National Football Championship. The league was only 6 days away from conclusion, but the decision was taken following increased cases of coronavirus infections in the West African country.
I am disappointed with the cancellation of the championship because we were leading. Our wish was to win the championship when it resumed. I was convinced we were going to win the title finally, but it's too bad it did not turn out the way we wanted. But we are taking the federation's decision with fair play because we are in a COVID-19 pandemic period.
It was a unanimous decision approved by club officials, representatives of the professional league and the country's Ministry of Sports, following an advisory from the Confederation of African Football.
We are in an exceptional period where we are facing a pandemic that is COVID-19, and all the decisions we take at this time of the global pandemic must be made in the public interest. Population health is more important than sport. Our wish is that the disease will disappear so that people can return to football and sport in general.
It was a similar move in Niger, where the emergency committee of the Football Federation cancelled the first division season with less than 2 weeks to its conclusion.
We simply decided to cancel the season and better prepare for next season. We told ourselves that the pandemic is still there. The respective measures decided by the government are still in effect. Football is very important to us. Many people make their living from it, but we told ourselves that health and the preservation of human life are above all else.
Two teams, Akokana and Olympic Niamey, were leading the league with 47 points each when the season was cancelled after 26 rounds of matches.
It goes without saying that CAF itself will be pushing back its calendars. But in any case, it's going to be complicated in both seasons. In Niger, we really have a problem aligning the program with the CAF calendar. It's really an opportunity for us to align ourselves with CAF's 2020 to 2021 calendar.
The two countries are now back to the drawing board, trying to figure out how their council leagues will be aligned within the broader continent football calendar. For teams and players, the season cancellation means that there will be no promotion and relegation this year. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN.
Now, Uganda's football governing body FUFA has terminated the 2019-2020 season due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is the first time in close to 30 years that the National League has ended on a technicality. CGTN's Leon Senyange reports.
Vipers Soccer Club was awarded the Uganda Premier League title. The Venoms had a 4-point lead over second-placed Kampala Capital City Authority Football Club when the season was suspended with 5 games left. The local football federation says the uncertainty to the end of the coronavirus pandemic was holding back the league resumption.
We have a deadline of June the 30th. So much happens in the football calendar. That is when the season ends. Player transfers too. It would have been difficult for us to wait and complete the season.
It is the first time in close to 30 years that the local football league has been decided on a technicality. The local football federation invoked the 75% rule from their competition's regulations to end the season. And there were gains for some teams that managed to retain their places in the top division. Relegation was unavoidable for others. Proline FC is one of the 3 relegated teams. They were hopeful they could fight to survive the drop. They will instead play in the lower division next season.
We would have loved to have a chance to fight because we really had a good platform on which to fight and avoid relegation this season. But at the end of the day, it's unusual times in the world.
The decision to hold the league also affected the lower divisions. The Women's Super League, League Cup and Juniors League were also annulled. It's a decision some feel was long overdue.
I have a feeling they delayed. We are not England, we are not Italy, we are not Germany. We are Uganda with limited resources. So trying to prolong the league was kind of challenging and straining for the club.
With the sudden end to the football season, Vipers Soccer Club automatically earned the right to compete in the CAF Champions League. The local federation says second-placed Kampala City Council Authority Football Club will compete in the African Confederations Cup. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Well, Uganda, Niger and Burkina Faso are just some of the countries that have declared their league winners for the 2019-2020 season. Let's now rejoin our panel. Adel Mahrouri joins me from Cairo, Egypt, and CS Duplessis in Johannesburg. CS, coming to you, how will relegated teams specifically take this decision to end the leagues prematurely, especially if they had a fighting chance to avoid the drop?
Well, it's highly unlikely that we will see that the season gets called off. I think at this stage, the Premier Soccer League have made it very clear, as well as the South African Football Association, that they want the season to end and have this current campaign completed. Because at the end of the day, you've got such a tight race for the title. You've got Kaizer Chiefs who have turned 50. Mamelodi Sundowns, the reigning champions, are still in the hunt. They were meant to play Orlando Pirates just before the fixtures were suspended in what could have been a decider in terms of who finishes in the second spot. So there's still lots to play for. In terms of the relegation, you've got 3 teams from the Limpopo province who are battling out to try and stay in the Premier Soccer League. But at this stage, it looks highly unlikely that they will call an abrupt end. I think everyone is trying to find a way to get this current campaign concluded in the right way, because we've seen in the past when it's come to player disputes and when clubs have used players they shouldn't have or signed incorrectly, we've had clubs like Ajax Cape Town who desperately want to get back into the top flight of South African football, go to the highest court in the land to challenge the decision. So let's say, which is highly unlikely, the Premier League decides that's it, we're calling an end to the season. There'll be a lot of clubs with a lot of legal bills to settle. So it will be messy, and hopefully it won't happen, and they'll find a way to safely conclude this campaign.
Right, and Adele, coming to you now, what options rather do clubs who might feel aggrieved by this decision to end the seasons early have locally, both with CAF and even with FIFA?
Well, there is no option for anyone, basically. Once the Egyptian government takes the decision, and therefore the EFA builds upon the final decision on the fate of Egyptian competitions, clubs will really have no options except to accept what has been given by the EFA, or resort to CAF, FIFA, or the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Other than that, there are no options. And any situation beside resuming the competition is going to lead to definitely a lot of controversy and disputes between the clubs. We have currently in the Premier League, Al Ahly is leading the scoreboard with 49 points. 16 points below Al Ahly comes Arab Contractors, or Al-Mu'awwalun Al-Arab, in second place. Now, Arab Contractors has 33 points, Pyramids has 32 points, Zamalek has 31 points. So this is how close the scoreboard is. And if, for example, the FA decides to freeze the competition and takes the results as is, there are 3 clubs 1 point away from each other, almost playing the same number of matches. So it's definitely won't be of any appeal to the clubs below Arab Contractors, Pyramids, and Zamalek. That goes for also clubs who are expected to relegate from the Premier League, who are threatened and now are at the bottom. They still have a chance maybe to push themselves up a little bit. So it's going to be messy, as I said, and it's not, there is really no easy option or an easy way out for either the clubs, the Football Association, or the government. How they're going to play it out, that's the big question, and this is will definitely have a lot of regulations, except if there is a unanimous result. For example, something that is coordinated, Egypt, the Football Association, the Sports Ministry can coordinate some sort of an outlook with CAF, with FIFA, then there's really no options for the club but to accept whatever the results will become.
Right, gentlemen, I'll keep you on the line for a moment as we stay with Egypt, where the decision to resume the 2019-2020 season in June by the country's sports ministry has sparked sharp divisions among the 18 Premier League clubs there. The teams cannot even agree on how the winner should be declared if the competition is cancelled. Here is CGTN's Adel Makhri, a member of tonight's panel, with that story.
The Egyptian Football Association says it's going to announce the fate of the Egyptian competitions by mid-June. With the Africa Cup of Nations still set for January, there is very little time to both conclude the Premier League and begin a new domestic season. Football officials say it's a 50-50 chance for the current league to get cancelled.
We cannot say which is the closest decision to be taken. The EFA is not the body designated to take such a decision. The African Confederation has not yet announced its call for continental competitions, so we cannot judge if there is going to be time to resume the Egyptian league.
Egyptian football clubs are divided. Some are for ending the season early, declaring Al Ahly and the Arab Contractors as the top 2 this season, and Egypt's candidates for the CAF Champions League, while others are objecting. They want the league nullified, wiping out all results.
Arab Contractors want to resume the Premier League. We can, in 2 months, wrap the season without causing any trouble. This way, it will be fair to decide who is relegating and who will join the big clubs. It could get sensitive. It's important to have a football system that is undisputed.
With no sports activities, all clubs are suffering. Some are installing salaries due to players, others have cut them in half. Meanwhile, the sports ministry is more concerned with how sports will resume under the pandemic.
We have formed several committees, including a medical one, to study how to resume sports activities and the regulations to guide that. We're trying to see what measures will be sufficient for a safe resumption, and we are coordinating with the Egyptian Football Association and others to set a program for that.
All sports activities are set to gradually resume by mid-June, but football remains to be the biggest challenge for Egypt. Between fears of completing it under a super tight schedule or cancelling it, there is no easy way out. In either cases, the sport will be burdened by unprecedented preventive measures, which impact on the players' performances remains unknown. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I'll go back to CS for one last question. CS, very briefly, in under a minute, in your personal opinion, having covered plenty of sports events, should the leagues return or should there be a quick resolution like what we've seen in France?
It's going to take time, unfortunately. I think we're seeing it that, federations and clubs, the leagues themselves are struggling to find a common ground. They're at loggerheads. It's going to be very difficult. Obviously, we want to see football return. We want to see the games get finished. We want to see the season concluded, but it all remains to be seen. Time will tell, and hopefully for everyone's sake, we can find a solution that works for the beautiful game and its lots and lots of fans.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Adel Mahroui joining us live there from Cairo, Egypt, and CS du Plessis in Johannesburg, South Africa. That's it for this edition of Sports Scene. Thank you very much for watching. See you again same time next week. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen now and follow us on our digital media platforms. I'm Mahia Muta. Thanks for watching.